We find ourselves in Driftmark, where Tyrion Lannister, the Hand of the King, makes an appearance and meets with Lord Monterys Velaryon, Lord of the Tides. They greet each other naturally, and the conversation is quite direct. Without hesitation, Tyrion tells him that Dragonstone has been occupied by Jon Snow, who possesses a dragon, as Targaryen blood runs through his veins. The Lord of Driftmark is surprised, since Dragonstone was under his stewardship, and no one had warned him about the occupation of his territory. This led him to suspect that Jon Snow had either massacred all his men and stewards on the island, or alternatively, that they had betrayed him. As a result, Monterys Velaryon prepares an escort and asks Tyrion to depart immediately for Dragonstone, so he can witness with his own eyes the events that have placed him in such a compromising position. Tyrion agrees, and together they set sail for the fortress of Dragonstone. Upon arrival, they immediately spot Drogon circling the island. The fear such a creature inspires creates a tense atmosphere. Yet both men, accompanied by 20 skilled warriors of House Velaryon, climb the fortress stairs and request that the gates be open. At that moment, Monterys Velaryon sees that the garrison he had left in Dragonstone is still alive, and seemingly now follows the commands of the last Targaryen. Just as they are requesting entry, Drogon descends and lands behind them, increasing their fear and unease. The dragon keeps a close eye on them, and then appears the old man who had helped Jon discover his true destiny as the last Targaryen. He orders his men to open the gates. Now acting as the advisor of his new lord, the old man asks that the 20 Velaryon warriors remain in the courtyard, while Tyrion and Monterys Velaryon are welcomed into the throne room to speak with their lord, Aegon Targaryen. The old man leads them to the throne room, where Tyrion comes face to face with an old friend. Someone he knew to be honest, who might have been a great ruler. A man who saved the Seven Kingdoms by putting an end to Daenerys Targaryen's madness and slaughter. Without hesitation, Tyrion kneels in respect, and just as he begins to speak, he calls him Jon Snow. But it is corrected. Aegon Targaryen is his name now. Tyrion is surprised at how much the man who respected has changed. Then the three men begin their discussion. They talk about the occupation of Dragonstone and Aegon's intentions. Aegon explains that House Velaryon has no legitimate claim to govern those lands, and that by right they belong to him, as the last descendant of Aegon the Conqueror. Additionally, by taming Drogon, he had proven his absolute legitimacy. If he was not granted these lands, then they would have to remove him by force. Monterys Velaryon understood Aegon's claim, but stated that those lands had been granted to him by order of the King of the Six Kingdoms. Therefore, if Aegon wanted war, then war he would have. Tyrion, however, preferred to calm tensions and sided with Aegon. He proposed that if Aegon truly wanted to reclaim those lands, he should do so through lawful means, by petitioning the king himself. Tyrion invited Aegon to King's Landing to present his case before his cousin, King Brandon Stark, and promised him that he would not be imprisoned and that it was no trap. If the king rejected his claim, Aegon would be free to live in peace. Aegon accepted and proposed to present himself before the king in 2 days. Tyrion said farewell to his old friend with a smile, which was returned. And before leaving, he joked that he hoped Aegon would not follow in his aunt's footsteps. Now we travel to the Iron Islands, where Tyrion Greyjoy returns from his long voyage with the sole purpose of finding the long-sought artifact capable of bending the will of dragons. But first, he sends 2 ravens to inform his allies that he has not secured any support for the rebellion. However, he has obtained information that could shift the balance toward the insurrection against the crown. In the messages sent to House Hightower and House Redwyne, he also urges caution, stating that now is not the time to move their troops. For now, it is important to remain calm. But if he finds the artifact, he will send a signal for the drums of war to sound. When the Lord of the Iron Islands arrives at Pike, he searches like a madman for the whereabouts of the horn he had heard about in Lys. He turns his fortress upside down and interrogates many of the former consulars who had served alongside his brother, to no avail. Then he sends ravens to his vassals, asking them to search their lands and create expedition teams to explore caves and dig holes, without revealing what they are searching for. This desperate hunt leads nowhere, and madness increasingly consumes Victarion. He begins to believe the sea swallowed the horn along with his brother's lifeless body. He locks himself in his chambers, thinking for hours about where his brother might have hidden the artifact. Hours turn into days, and Victarion barely eats. Finally, after many sleepless nights and exhaustive reflection, he remembers a place where they used to play as children with wooden axes. Just beneath the fortress lies a cave, accessible only at certain hours due to the tide's violence. He waits for the right moment and enters the cave. Nostalgia washes over him. And at the end of the dark cavern, he finds it. The dragon horn. An artifact that can bend the will of dragons. But at what cost? We now return to Lord Harroway's town, where Edmure Tully's army impatiently awaits the arrival of the Knights of the Vale, led by Jon Royce. Seeing that they are still absent, and that the Dothraki continue to pillage villages and massacre people, Edmure Tully decides he can no longer wait idly. He rallies his troops and, seeking glory for himself, marches toward the Dothraki position near the settlement of Darry. Upon arrival, they spot the barbarian riders. Edmure positions his forces for battle. Taking a defensive stance, he places his spearmen at the front, backs them with swordsmen, and then places his archers at the rear, instructing them to fire volleys at the Dothraki cavalry. He and his personal guard take position on the right flank to prevent an incitement. The battle begins. The Tully archers unleash several volleys that take down many riders and thin the Dothraki numbers. Still, the barbarians' charge is fierce, and the Tully spearmen brace for impact. They fire with spears and shields, holding the charge. Then Edmure orders his swordsmen to support the spears. As Tully casualties rise, Edmure himself leads a charge with his cavalry into the enemy's right rear flank. This charge demoralizes the barbarians' troops, and victory is within reach, though a costly one for House Tully. Over time, the Dothraki fall, and the Tully forces claim victory. Some Dothraki escape towards Harrenhal, and there is no sign that Khal Raga has perished. Then in the distance, the Knights of the Vale arrive at a gallop. John Royce, furious, scolds Edmure for his impatience, which led to unnecessary losses. But together, the two armies march to lay siege to Harrenhal and end the threat once and for all. In the north, preparations for the Queen's wedding are underway, and the events is just days away. But the return of Arya Stark raises many questions. These uncertainties prompt the Queen to send a large part of her fleet to patrol the western waters of her realm to prevent any pursuers of her sister from reaching their land. Arya and Sansa speak for hours, mostly about Arya's adventures and the new civilization she had discovered. However, that discovery brings confusion and danger to the independent kingdom of the north. For this reason, Sansa forbids Arya from leaving again to avoid provoking a conflict for her people. But such a prohibition cannot stop Arya Stark's recklessness and agility. She plans to depart once again after her sister's wedding. And so we end for now, with a dragon and a Targaryen on its back flying toward King's Landing, an imminent siege at Harrenhal, a rebellion about to erupt, a northern wedding, a new conflict rising in Westeros.